Hey everybody, Scott from Lawrence Hypnotherapy again, and welcome back to week 2 of how to turn your client, how to cure your client from addiction if all they want to do is tantrum. And so in this week, we're talking about 3 more issues that they can present you with. Again, using the CALM acronym, so the childish, the agreement frame, the lesson, and the moral. And just to kind of cover up again what that means is that the childish behavior, that's what they're presenting you with. But you can't just tell them the moral of the story when they give you the childish behavior. You've got to go through a process. You've got to win them over. You've got to basically show them that you're listening and show them that you're in rapport with them and show them that you understand what they've just said. And at that point, then they're open to you then shifting the perspective with the story, which is what the lesson is. And then finally, I'm going to stay over this one again. Finally, what they do is they get you, they allow you to be able to teach them something because you've won their rapport. And that's how this whole thing works. But what we want to take you through today is basically the triggered. It's like, you've annoyed me. Something that you've said, something that you've done has offended me. And that's something your client could say. And the next one is that what you've said doesn't make sense, that they just didn't understand it. Another one is that you're pushing me too hard. But what we're talking about the tantrum, is that the client's not coming from a resourceful behavior. They're not acting with responsibility, which means they're not responding with ability. They're responding not resourcefully, almost like responding with that almost disability style of behavior. You want them to respond with ability, but your role is to help them to respond with ability with you. And that's why we're going to go through these with you. So, starting week 2, the triggered one. You triggered me, you offended me, you went too far. Now, this isn't necessarily your fault. There doesn't always happen to be a method that you can prevent them from saying this, because you never know what's going to offend somebody. It's like if you've seen the internet, for starters, people get triggered by things. It doesn't always mean that offense was meant. Obviously, there are some things out there that are designed to offend, but you as the therapist, you're not trying to offend them. But sometimes, once in a while, they can become offended, and you need to rescue that situation. And you've got to do it kind of fast, yet patiently. So let's talk through it. The agreement frame. This C in SERF, which stands for core and function. If you haven't read, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, the whole point of that book is they're talking about how, just as an example, men and women can think in different ways. Sometimes there'll be men who think more like a woman. Sometimes there'll be women who do think more like a man. So if you find yourself to be in the exception, that's fine, that's cool. It's not a box that people are trying to shove you in. It's basically just the book's trying to describe that people do think in different ways, and men and women can be a really good example of those different ways of thinking, different styles of thinking. So let's say that here's a compliment. Let's give this compliment to a woman. And you say, you've got really beautiful eyes. And she might say, thank you. That's a core compliment, if that makes sense. It's a core. So the other thing is that if you say to a woman, a compliment about her eyes, you've got the kind of eyes that could really attract 30 new men a week. And now she's like, what are you trying to say? That I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing, if you know what I mean? It's like, no, I didn't mean that. So offense, triggered, you've offended me, you've gone too far. But it's because the same compliment, the eyes, instead of the core, those are beautiful eyes, thank you. It's that you've got the kind of eyes that could do something, function, that those eyes could function to attract lots of men. I'm like, sure, maybe they could function that way. But by going from a core compliment, you've got beautiful eyes, to a function compliment, which is what they can do, it really twists it. It really changes the compliment. But let's go the other way. Let's say with a man, you could basically say to a man, excuse me, sir, you've got really beautiful eyes. Now, on average, the man tends to kind of go uh-huh. Because when you compliment a man's appearance, or compliment a man's character, or compliment a man's core, on average, the compliment doesn't stick as much as what he's basically programmed to respond to, which is function compliments. You've done well. Or you'd say to the guy, you say to the man, excuse me, sir, as a woman might say to him, you've got the kind of eyes that could really, really attract women. And you can say, yeah, that's right. And I earn good money, I'm a breadwinner, I can bench press a whole bus. Because he cares, the man cares about, as the hunter, he cares about what he can provide, he cares about what he can achieve, he cares about his function. And she tends to care more about her core. So when you insult a woman, the worst possible insult is to pick on her appearance, don't do it. Not to say that you should insult her on her function, but definitely don't insult her on her core. But that same feeling that a woman can get if you just started directly insulting her appearance, which is not cool to do, not okay to do, The same thing tends to happen to men if you insult their function, not so much if you insult their core. If you tell him, you're not earning much money, you're not something like, say, you're not achieving what you need to achieve, you're not stepping up, you're not doing these things, that to a man can feel the same as to a woman is to insult her core or to insult her appearance, if that makes sense. So what we want to do is notice that, like, if your client's basically gone, you've gone too far, you've offended me, the idea is that what you wanted was to help. Let's say you're trying to help them with ice, trying to help them with marijuana, trying to help them with alcohol, trying to help them with gambling, trying to help them with insomnia, anxiety, depression, any of these things. You're trying to help them. And so you've said something to help them. And so what you've intended is to say, hey, here's a strategy. If you use this strategy, this will help. But what they've heard sometimes is judgment, sometimes disrespect, if that makes sense. And that's not how you intended it, but it's how they heard it. Because either you said it as core and they heard it as function, or you said it as function and they heard it as core. If you change what you've said to go the other way, I guarantee you'll get a different result. So the lesson, so this is, remember when we go, the childish behavior is what they present to you. The agreement frame is like when you say to them, look, oh, okay, I understand like that what I've said isn't necessarily what I meant to say. The agreement frame, you say, okay, so I understand that you feel judged, as in that you feel that perhaps I said that thing which could potentially, did you mean this? I didn't mean that. What I said actually, the way I intended it, means something else. So with this, with the lesson, if you find out which one they're going through is their core understanding of the function, just to give them an idea, it's like there's nothing offensive about it when you realize that, and when your client realizes that it's not the words themselves that were offended, it's the interpretation of those words. So with this Zen proverb, where basically somebody like, a guy comes along with perhaps like a bag, like a present bag, and it's full of rubbish, and says, this is yours now. And you go, well, I don't want it. I refuse to receive the gift. I'm not receiving the gift. So then who owns the gift? It's a bag of rubbish. Who owns it? Well, the person who had it in the first place still owns it, because the second person didn't receive it. The same as if somebody insults you, you don't need to receive the gift. And so when you combine that, teaching them with then the moral, which is that if your love language or if your language like you associate as core, do you feel that like if I say that you haven't done something, to you does that mean that you're a bad person? Because that's not how I intended it. Or if you were to say that's like you're the kind of person who you don't really care about achieving that goal. If there's someone who basically judges themselves on function, achievement to them is their entire world. So what you want to do is find out how they see the world. Find out not like just what you've said, but find out what you've said means to the other person, and then demonstrate that like what you meant by it is there is an opportunity here to do better, if that makes sense. So core and function, core is what they are, function is what they're doing. People associate more so to one or the other. So in between is like when you find that you're speaking the same language together. So like when we're saying don't use their offense language, like if you find that with a client or with a coaching client, you've got to move them, you've got to tell them, you've got to assess. You're not actually doing the work the way that we've told you, you've got to change it. If you found like what a language is offensive to them, find out what language is a compliment to them. Find out like what do they want to hear. Because sometimes they might say to you that you've offended them because they presented you with their work or they presented you with the change and you didn't compliment it. Whereas maybe you did compliment them, but not in the language that they want to hear. So often like what they've found, just like in the John Gray books, the Mars and Venus books, is if you say to a woman who, if you were to say to a woman who has brought you this lovely dinner, and you go like, wow, that's the best dinner I've ever had. In the book, as it talks about how if a man hears that compliment, he tends to hear that that means thank you. When a woman hears that compliment, to her, more so it sort of means you notice that I brought you dinner, but I'm still waiting for the thank you, because you've got to actually say the words, thank you, because at your core, I think that you're kind, you're generous, versus you just brought me food. Like, yeah, I know that I brought you food. Where's my compliment? Where's the compliment, not about the food, where's my compliment about me? So if your client's really progressing well, find out what their compliment language is. All right, so number 2 for today, for this week, is that now we've covered the triggered sense. It's as in, I don't understand, you don't make sense. or that doesn't make sense, however they say it, or this one, which is a bracket and a bracket with no words inside. Sometimes when they think that you don't make sense, they don't even say words. They just kind of go either like this, or like this, or like this, or like that. It's like they don't even always say it. So you need to ask sometimes, like, does that make sense to you? And then they might go, sort of. Like, what do you mean sort of? Does it make sense or not? But you've got to do it in a nice way. So with that doesn't make sense. We have acronyms because we are amazing acronym nerds and we're not afraid to admit it. One called SHOW. Show me. Show me how this works. S-H-O-W. I'll talk you through this, but for the agreement frame, S for system, what's your system called? Like if you're, if it doesn't make sense. S for system, what's the thing called that you want me to actually do? H, how does it work? What are the steps? What am I to expect that is going to happen or that I am going to have to do? O for outcome, at the end of this, like if this session could go, or this video, or this course, or this whatever it is that you do, could go any way that you want it to be, so that at the end you get the exact result that you want to get. What would that result be? What would the evidence be that you got exactly what you want? What would it be? Outcome. And Y, or W for why is that a good thing? If you got that outcome, how would your life be different? How can you apply it? Would my money be better? Would my health be better? Would my relationships be better? Would my time management or my happiness be better? What's in it for me? If that makes sense? Show it to me. So S for system, what's it called? H for how it works, what's going to happen? O for outcome, what will it look like at the end? And sound like and feel like, if you want to go all the senses, taste and smell at the end. And W for why, what's in it for me? How is it going to affect my money, my health, my relationship, my time, and my money? So there's this story to love, and this story is worth the course price alone. Absolutely, I promise you that. The cat brings the owner a dead mouse. So you think about, like, I don't know if you own a cat or if you know someone who owns a cat, but when a cat brings like a dead mouse to the owner, the first thing you do is you go, that's really disgusting. Why did you bring me that dead mouse? The cat thinks it's good. The cat thinks that what they have is good because the cat would want the dead mouse, but you may not. So the idea is that the reason that metaphor is so important is that sometimes we might be bringing a dead mouse to our clients. Either that, or we're bringing them gold, we're bringing them absolute gold. Imagine it's a diamond, like a $1 million diamond inside of the belly of that dead mouse that the cat has brought you. But you wouldn't know, because no one has shown you, there's no show. So it's to say, when you give a course to someone, or when you give a technique to someone, they don't understand its value. Just because you've studied NLP, just because you've studied psychology, just because you've studied hypnotherapy, just because you've studied trance work, just because you've studied hypnotherapy, whatever it is, just because you've studied, doesn't mean that the other person recognizes the value. So you can't just kind of go around going, they're not doing the work because they're not seriously committed. They've got fear stopping them from joining my program. They've got fear stopping them from doing the steps. You know what? Sometimes it doesn't make that much sense to the other person, and you need to show them how it makes sense. So, the moral of this story. So we kind of think about small picture, the real small picture stuff. They need to know how it works, step by step. They also need to know what it's going to look like in the end. So it's real tangible stuff. The big picture stuff, what's it called? What's the entire system called? And the W for the why it's important. The big picture stuff. For the rest of my life, if I'm not smoking, what's it going to be like? Does it save me money? Does it make me healthier? Does it let me not lose one tooth every 11 years or whatever it is? Or does it not take 11 years off my life, whatever it is? Does it let me see the grandchildren for more years? Does it let me kind of come up these stairs better? Does it give me not just a larger lifespan, but a larger health span as well? Because health span, that's not just how long you live. It's also not being necessarily hooked up to a machine and not being able to basically to live the quality of life that you want. So this SHOW acronym, and again, the 4 stuff, the name of the program and how it works. They can know about the program, what it's called in advance. They can know what the steps are in advance. But they also in advance need to understand what's going to happen after, as in the O for the outcome and the W for the why that's important. So these are the things that their brain is literally wanting to know. Show it to them. Make this part of your language. My brother and I, my friends, I've got another friend that we always say show because he does a gardening thing. and we basically go, can you show me, like, what's going to happen in the backyard? And he's like, I'll show you. It's called, he's like the system, it's called the Egyptian garden. How it works is that, and he starts telling me about where everything goes. The outcome is that it kind of like is a little more suited to the type of backyard that you've actually got. Or that he'll say, like, what it's going to look like is that this thing's going to be over there, this thing's going to be over there. And why it's important is that because it's such a little maintenance, you can bring friends around without having to do too much maintenance every time you have a barbecue. I'm like, cool, that was much better than just saying, hey, I'm just going to do an Egyptian garden for you. It's like, well, I need to have it shown to me, show what's it called, how's it work, what's the outcome, and why is that important? What are the benefits? If that makes sense. So when someone says to you, it doesn't make sense, or someone says to you, or if someone just kind of does this, and you've lost their attention, because you haven't done show. The next one, the last one for this week. You're pushing me too hard. And so why this one's like so important is because they get this feeling that in a way, it's like that as much as you do care about your clients, they don't think you do. They think that, you know, like how PTs can basically say, get down on the ground and do push-ups. So as a PT, people are kind of maybe, they're used to clients that will accept that because it's a gym, or it's like, it's the boot camp, or whatever it is. But if you're in a counseling situation, if you are a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or if you are a hypnotherapist, or any form of somebody who has to talk to people about sensitive topics, even if you were a business coach and they're basically in a way worried about their money, pushing me too hard because I can't do this, they're thinking energetically that it's going to break them along the way. Or I don't have the support that you have, I don't have like, the experience, I don't have the people around me, the support network that you have. I don't have the tools, I don't have what it is, or I can't afford it, that, whether it's to come and do your sessions for $200 each week. These are genuine fears that are really going to scare somebody. And so it's so important to be able to recognize it. So that with if you've seen SWOT, so again, like I love these diagrams that basically go, there's you, which is the strength and the weaknesses is the you. Or if you're talking about your client, it's the them, their strengths and their weaknesses. Inside of the agreement frame, you want to talk to them about, like, I understand, you've got these strengths, you've got these abilities, you've got these resources within you, and I get that. But you've also got these, like, which don't call them weaknesses necessarily, especially if you don't want to offend their insult language, or their offense language. The weaknesses, you might say that, you know, I know that you've kind of got these worries, you've got these concerns about that you can't do it, or that you don't have the support, or that you can't afford it. Then you can talk to them about what we call the environment stuff, which is opportunities, because they're out in the environment, they're good things in the environment, and then threats, which are bad things in the environment. So you can kind of break it up this way, where you can say that the good is on the left, the strength and the opportunities are on the left. On the right, the bad is the weaknesses and the threats, and I love to see it broken up that way, because they can see the whole picture once it's broken up that way. And like, there's these opportunities out there that you want, but these threats that are coming to get you, the bills, I understand that. So the agreement frame, you're going, that thing you're going through, I get it. Before you start preaching, before you're saying, here's how to do it, before you even start showing them what to do, it's that I get it. I absolutely get it. But let me tell you a story. So the lesson, the square peg in the round hole, this is where, like, it's just an analogy that you've heard people talk about the square peg in the round hole. What's actually wrong with that story? So like, if you were to say that you're pushing me too hard, and if you push a square peg too hard into a round hole, it'll get stuck. Your client will get stuck. So you talk to them about alignment. Alignment is so important because there's resources that people have in their lives that they don't even know that they have. That's why one of your jobs is not just to push them to do better, but to kind of clear the path ahead of them. As in, let's say that, you know, like if you've ever seen, there's this particular sport where I've seen it done, like, you know, on television in London. I think it's called like the kettlebell sweeping or something, like where basically you throw this kind of kettle and then you get the sweeping brush or the broom, and like your job is to clear a path ahead to make this thing go as far as it can. And so that you want the road ahead to be as clear as possible. It's like you're turning on the headlights for them. They're in a car and you're trying to show them that I'm not trying to just push you, I'm actually just going to show you that the path ahead is clear. If you can help them see that the path ahead of them is clear, they'll move by themselves. If they're greedy, if they want a result, they came to you in the first place. Yes, they want a result. They came to you for a reason. If you can show them that the path ahead is clear, you don't have to push. So that's why, like, with what's your client's needs, what are your client's needs, and what are your client's resources? Their needs are the things that make them come to you. The resources is what you really need to talk to them about. You need to be able to, as the moral of the story, like when you tell them a story about, look, I'm not here to push you, I'm here to turn on the headlights, I'm here to expose some resources. Do you have friends that would help you or family that would help you, but you're not asking? You've got a baby and you can't get a babysat because it's basically going to cost you 2 days' wage per day to babysit that baby. And they're running out of money and they're worried about it. Or do you have, like, if not parents, if not grandparents, if not a brother or a sister, but do you know humans? There's like 7.4 billion humans on the planet. There's resources that you have, you can ask for help. You can always ask someone for help. And so like when you ask them, who is it in your life that can help you? There was this lady that I met, one of my clients. She's Jewish, she's 80, and she said that at my age, you're too young to know this, or you're too young to relate to this, but at my age, you don't have any friends. I'm like, what? My grandma has heaps of friends. She's more popular than me. I'm like, I wish I was like my grandma. I wish I had as many friends as my grandma. She's awesome. But this Jewish lady is basically telling me that a lot of my friends have moved away, passed away, or that they're not well enough to meet up anymore, to do all the things that we used to do. And she's like, and at my age, you can't make new friends. I'm like, she's a Jewish lady. And I asked her, are you interested in meeting other Jewish people? And she's like, yeah, I suppose. I'm like, where could you go to meet other Jewish people? It's Melbourne, right? It's Melbourne. Where would you go in Melbourne to find other Jewish people? Like, where do they all hang out? Is it the synagogue? Like, where do you go? Like, yeah, she's like, it's been a long time since I've actually been to a place like that. It's been a long time since I've gone to church. Like, well, go. She's like, I will. And then I talked to her again, and she made so many friends. Again, like, I'm jealous. She has more friends than me now. It's just incredible. Freeing up the resources. That your job is to turn the headlights on so they can see a little bit further the resources that they have. Or let's say that you're a business coach, you're helping someone with their business. There's so much money in the planet. There's more humans on the planet with money. If you're advertising, people can buy your stuff. So it's not about where do I find money. It's how do I come up with a clearer ad. Or if somebody's saying, like, if it's not a business coach thing, I'm addicted to, it could be this, whatever the substance is. Let's say just like start with cigarettes. The cigarettes are the only break that I get because the kids won't leave me alone. Like, remember from last week's video. Talk to them about how they can have a break, like with the ABCD, the achievement, the B for break or breathing space, C for connection, and D for discovery. The B for break, teach them how to have a better break. There's a resource they can have. They want more breaks, plan breaks. Ask for breaks. Talk to people. Because there's resources, but you've got to look for them. If that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, we'll go through the show acronym again to make sure it makes sense. So I'm Scott from Lawrence Hypnotherapy. Thanks so much again for being part of this course, How to Cure Super Addicted Clients Who Only Want a Tantrum. These are the things, after seeing over 3,000 clients, these are the problems that come up time and time again. And they're all fixable, but you just need to follow this process. Thanks again, and look out next week for week 3 of the course.